Review of Ancient Civilizations, Unit 1. Before you watch this video, find the following papers. You need your cheat sheet. It says Ancient Civilizations Over Time on one side and Characteristics of Civilizations on the other. And this is the page that has the chart and the timeline on it. You also need your maps and your test review worksheet. Get all that stuff together and then continue watching this video. By the end of this video, you will have reviewed the major ideas and themes about ancient civilizations. These are the things that you should understand. Ancient history covers a long period of time. Place, literally where you are, matters. Ancient civilizations were complex, and ancient people developed advanced technology. As you are watching and listening to this video, you should be doing two things. You should be looking on your cheat sheet to see the information that I'm discussing, because that's the origin of most of what's in this video. And you should be filling in the blanks on your test review guide. If you do those two things, you'll be really prepared for the test on this unit. Ancient civilizations lasted a long time. They didn't all last the same amount of time, but for the most part, they lasted for a significant period of time. Some civilizations lasted for a few hundred years. That means they were about the same age as the United States is right now. Some civilizations lasted for thousands of years, and I mean like 2,000 and 3,000 years, so that their history, even though they've come and gone, lasted a lot longer than what we deal with in the United States today. And most importantly, these civilizations overlapped in both time and place. As one civilization was in decline, maybe another civilization was on the rise, or two civilizations in two different places existed at the same time. So it's not like there was one civilization and then another and then another. They are all overlapped on top of each other. Also, civilizations were in contact with and influenced each other primarily in two ways. They traded goods and resources back and forth with each other, and they fought each other for control of the same territory. Lastly, some civilizations, say for example the Indus Valley civilization in what is today Pakistan, disappeared without any real explanation, and historians don't really know what caused that civilization to end or what happened to those people. Place matters. Where you are determines how you live. Most of the ancient civilizations that we've discussed were on river locations. The rivers provided them with food and water. It allowed them to irrigate their crops. The annual floods of the river made the soil fertile, and the river gave them a means of transportation and communication. In Mesopotamia, the rivers that we're talking about are the Tigris and Euphrates. In Egypt, the river is the Nile. The Indus Valley civilization is actually named for its river, the Indus River. And in China, we're talking about the Yellow and Yangtze rivers. And if you're looking at your maps, your map of Mesopotamia and Egypt, as well as your map of India and China, you ought to be able to see and locate all of these places. Now, we did talk about a civilization that didn't locate on a river, but on a seacoast. Phoenicia was located on the Mediterranean Sea. You should also be able to see this on your map of Mesopotamia. And they used the Mediterranean to trade with the other areas in the region. So their seacoast location enabled them to develop trade routes. What happens when you're living along a river is that soil is very fertile. And the fertile soil plus people who farm create a food surplus. They grow more food than they need for themselves individually to survive. When you have a food surplus, people are able to do other jobs besides farming and looking for food, and that gives you specialization of labor. When people can do different jobs, that enables cities to grow. And then when you've got these people in cities all doing different kinds of jobs and producing different kinds of goods and services, you develop a trade economy where either you're bartering for goods, you take what you produce and you trade it for something you need and vice versa, or you have the exchange of money, like the Persians and some of the Chinese civilizations that actually developed coins and currency to use in exchange for goods and services. Ancient civilizations were complex places. We're not talking about people who lived in caves and walked around with fire on torches. These cities that developed in ancient civilizations gave way to organized government. And in most cases, you had kings and priests who were in charge. And in these cities, you had both public buildings, temples, bathhouses, as well as palaces and tombs like the pyramids, where the palaces that the kings built while they were living, and then the tombs that they built to honor the kings and the pharaohs when they died. Now, these rulers often promoted the idea that they were the representatives of the gods on earth. Polytheistic worship was really common, and in most of these societies you had more than one god being worshipped. The exceptions to that would have been the Hebrews and the Persians, who were monotheistic. And we also see the development of some of the world's major religions and belief systems: Judaism, Hinduism, Buddhism, and Confucianism. The most important idea, though, of this concept that the rulers were like gods is that it discouraged people from rebelling. It made the people almost fear, respect, revere the rulers, and they tended to be more likely to follow what the rulers said, which promoted stability in the society. Ancient civilizations in large part developed systems of writing, and that varied. Cuneiform, hieroglyphics, alphabets. They also developed ways to make paper in both Egypt and China. And the ability to write things down allowed for the development of codes of law and tax collection. It also led, in some locations, to the construction of libraries. So the idea of developing writing allows you to organize and communicate more efficiently within your civilization. And people had advanced technologies in these civilizations. They built all kinds of amazing structures, ziggurats and pyramids. They built cities on common plans. They had walls for protection. The Chinese even built walls along their border to protect from outside invaders. They had systems of roads and canals, beautiful palaces and gardens. Remember that in the Indus Valley, they developed indoor plumbing and common bathhouses for the people. The Phoenicians were great shipbuilders. So people could plan, they could organize, they could measure, and they could construct with a high degree of accuracy in these civilizations. In addition to all the things that people built, they developed lots of inventions. They used the wheel both in pottery and transportation, developing chariots and things that allowed them more easily to transport goods and people from place to place. They built ships with steering oars and sails that would allow them to better control where and how they traveled against the current and against the wind and on rivers and seas. They had plows that enabled them to become more efficient farmers. They developed sundial to measure time, and they were interested in learning about the world around them and explored different areas of study. Astronomy, so that they could chart the movement of the planets and the stars and predict things like lunar eclipses. They studied mathematics in the form of algebra and geometry. They developed medical treatments for the different sorts of diseases and issues that they had to deal with. And they became pretty efficient at measuring time, developing systems of time measurement that were based on 60 seconds in a minute, 60 minutes in an hour. They developed calendars that were based on 30 days of the month, and understood, if not exactly how everything moved in the universe, how that movement affected the passage of time. We've reached the end of our test review video, so you need to check and make sure that you've filled out your study sheet. If there's anything you have a question about, rewind and rewatch this video.